Today was supposed to be the day my fated mate and I got engaged, but now I'm watching him kiss another woman. Marrying her could make him the future alpha because she's the daughter of Gavin Landry, the most powerful Lycan Chairman in the world. A couple of months ago, our alpha died during a battle, and now all the candidates are competing for that position, including my mate, Ethan. Everyone knows the Lycans control the werewolf population, and Gavin, he could single-handedly appoint everyone the new alpha. So, Ethan made his choice. Her, not me. Get me a whiskey and a martini for the lady. A deep voice sounded from nearby. Is it the future bride, or the future groom that's got in a mood? I'm just not into parties, I decided to say. Nor am I, he murmured. I am here out of obligation. The bartender placed my drink in front of me and I immediately took a sip, sighing in contentment. I waited for the alcohol to do its job and finish numbing the pain. Every time Ethan kissed her, it killed me a little more. How had my life taken such a devastating turn? How could my mate do this to me? Did our 2 years together truly mean nothing? Did the mark on my neck mean that little to him? Thank you for the drink, I told the man. I took one last sip of my martini and started to get down from the stool. Except my blouse snagged on the corner of the counter, and just as I heard a tearing sound, I began to fall to the ground. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for the impact, but it never came. Instead, I felt strong arms wrapping around my body, lifting me into the air. I opened my eyes and peeked up at the man who caught me, and my breath hitched. He was so handsome. He held me with ease as if I weighed nothing, and I could tell from the feeling of his arms around me that he was muscular. He smiled down at me and a dimple appeared on his right cheek. I wanted to lick that dimple. Madam, are you falling for me? He asked, teasingly. I stared at him for a heartbeat longer before I squinted my eyes at him, seeing what he did there. You're a funny one, aren't you? He grinned. Then he looked at my shirt and immediately frowned. Let me take you to my suite upstairs, he said, making my heart skip a beat. What? I said in barely a whisper. His eyes met mine and I got lost in their beauty for a moment. Goddess. His good looks were sinful. Your shirt is ripped. I have one you can wear upstairs in my VIP suite, he explained. I blinked a couple of times and gave a nervous chuckle. Oh, right. Thank you, I managed to sputter. He turned to the bartender. Charge our drinks to my suite, he ordered. Yes, sir. I allowed the man to carry me out of the room. His arms were so warm that I found myself resting my head against his broad chest, breathing in his minty scent. My wolf was practically purring in my mind. She'd been quiet for most of the evening while she licked the wounds the broken mate bond had caused. But right now, it was as if she had forgotten she was heartbroken. Take off your shirt, he ordered once we were in the suite. He had released me and was walking to the closet. Excuse me? I squeaked. So, you can put on a new shirt, he explained. Right, I breathed. I lifted my ripped shirt over my head and threw it onto the bed, leaving me in only my bra from the waist up. Once he found a shirt, he turned around to face me, and his entire body froze as his eyes trailed down my body. I was too busy checking him out to notice him staring at me, but the longer I stared at him, the more I started to recognize him. Then, realization struck me, and I gasped. It's you. I breathed, taking a step back. His eyes shifted upward and met mine, his brow arched. You know me? He asked. I know of you, I clarified. The corner of his lips tipped upward as he walked towards me, slowly, as if he were stalking his prey. I could practically hear the sounds of my heartbeat. And what do you know of me? Only what I've heard, I admitted. And what have you heard? You're Gavin Landry, Lycan Chairman. You're a playboy. You have a new woman each week, and you never sleep with the same woman twice. He raised his brows. Is that so? He asked. Tell me more about myself. Hell, he's the father of the bride and Ethan's future father-in-law. I'm confused. I don't know what I should do. But I'm not surprised I didn't recognize him at first. The Lycan family isn't high profile. They're more used to staying behind the scenes than becoming politicians and celebrities like Werewolf Alpha. Should I tell him who I am? But that would be stupid at this moment. He continued to walk towards me, and I continued to walk backwards until my back hit the wall. What more do you want to know? I asked, my voice coming out breathy. Everything. I'm not sure if it was the martini speaking or me, but I decided to be bold. If Ethan can indulge himself in someone new, then so could I. I lifted my gaze to meet his as he neared. Your eyes, I started to say. I've heard that they were mesmerizing, and I must agree. What else? I swallowed the lump in my throat. When you smile, you have this adorable dimple on your cheek, I whispered. He was only inches from me now, staring so intently at me that I thought I would burn up under his scrutiny. He licked his lips, drawing my attention to his mouth. And your lips. Before I could finish that sentence, his mouth crashed into mine. His kiss was anything but soft and sweet, but filled with hunger and possession. I kissed him with just as much eagerness. His tongue made its way between my lips, tasting every inch of me. He lifted me into the air, my body pinned between the wall and him. Instinctively, I wrapped my legs around his waist and allowed him to deepen the kiss. His lips trailed down the nape of my neck, and warmth spread across my body as I felt him sucking on my soft flesh. All self-control and common sense left my mind the moment his lips touched mine. All I could think about was Gavin. He consumed my mind, body, and soul entirely. I pulled at his tie, wanting to take it and his shirt off. He helped me undo his tie and then lifted his shirt over his head, tossing it to the ground. I let my fingers explore his body. They roamed over his abs and up his broad shoulders. I moaned into his mouth as his lips found mine again. "Are you sure you want this?" he asked between kisses. "Yes," I rasped out. "We are both willing adults, so why not?" His lips were on mine again, and just as he was about to take off my bra, I received a tearful mind link from my adoptive mother. "Judy, please, come home." She sounded panicked. My mother never panicked. Hearing her voice was like cold water being dumped on my head, and I gasped. I let my legs fall from around him, and I pressed against his chest. "Stop," I said breathlessly. "I have to go," he frowned. "I don't have much patience. Stop joking," he says, a hint of anger in his tone. I'm so sorry. But I'm sure you have plenty of other options," I said and started to run towards the door. But he grabbed my arm, stopping me. I whirl around to face him, my own anger rushing to the surface. But before I can say anything, he points to the bed. "Your shirt is ripped, remember?" I look down at my bra with a frown. "Oh," he sighed, grabbing his shirt and putting it over my head. I inhaled deeply and warmth spread throughout my body. It smelled like him. The moment I stepped into the house, I could hear my mother sobbing. "Judy?" My mother sobbed. I could hear that she was in the kitchen, and my heart stuttered at the sound of her broken voice. "Your father was taken away by the Gammas tonight." My heart fell into my stomach. "What?" I gasped. "We lived in a decent-sized house. My adoptive father, being a successful businessman and a Delta of the Red Moon Pack, had a lot of money. He was arrested," she explained. "He made a bad investment for the company, and he ended up losing all the money. He went completely bankrupt, and now he owes the pack so much money. Until he pays it, they put him in jail. They can't just come and take him away like this," I said, standing to my feet, hardly able to contain my emotions. "Without any warning? That's not fair. They can do whatever they want. The beta is under the jurisdiction of the Lycans, and it was his decision. Loan sharks are ruthless, and nobody wishes to deal with them. It's easier to just get rid of the problem in right now. Your father is the problem." Before I could say anything more, my phone started to ring. I reached into my bag and pulled it out. I frowned when I saw the name flash across the screen. "I heard about your father." Ethan's voice was soft as he spoke, and my traitorous heart skipped a beat. I hated how my body responded to him still. It was because of this stupid mate bond. Even though he rejected me, and I accepted it, that didn't mean it severed our bond. It won't be severed until he marks someone else. I might have a suggestion, though, but I'd like to tell you in person. Come outside. I quickly left the kitchen and walked out of the house. Ethan was leaning against his car with his arms folded across his chest. Goddess. I hated how good he looked. I had been in love with him for longer than 2 years. He was my friend, my confidant, my fated mate. When he rejected me, it destroyed everything I had dreamt of. I wrapped my arms around my body, desperately trying to hold myself together. "Why are you here?" I asked him after a long and awkward silence. "Why? I wanted to talk to you," he replied. The corner of his lips tipped upward as he stared at me. I nearly melted under his scrutiny, and I had to shift my gaze to look at the ground. "Because I can help you," he answered. "Your father's funding chain is broken, and he now owes a lot of money. I know for a fact that he doesn't have that kind of money, especially now that his business has gone under. but I do. I lifted my gaze to meet him. He was serious. Are you saying you'd pay my father's debt? I asked him. He nodded. Yes, he answered. And what would we have to do in return? I asked, afraid to ask. He smirked, which gave me an uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach. There is a condition, he confessed. I waited silently for him to continue, my eyes never leaving his. After I get married, I want you to drop out of school and become my mistress. I couldn't have heard him correctly. I stared at him with my jaw practically on the ground. Excuse me? I managed to sputter. You want me to what? Drop out of school and become my mistress. I already have a luxurious home for you to live in. You would never have to want for anything. I'll pay off your father's debt and give you more money than you could dream of. How? How could you ask me to do such a thing? I asked in a choked whisper. Tears threatened to spill from my eyes, but I kept them away, not wanting him to see my break. He stepped closer to me, and I felt rooted to the ground, unable to move away. My wolf was whimpering about his request. She couldn't believe our mate could ask such a thing from us. She was gutted, and I hated that she was put in this position. Because we've always been so good together, Judy, he said, reaching out and touching my arm gently. We will always have this strong connection, even if I mark someone else. You and your family would be set for life. All you have to do is say yes. He was rubbing his fingers up and down my arms, and I felt sick to my stomach. I finally found the strength to step away from him, my body trembling. No, I said, meeting his eyes. I would never become your mistress. His eyes darkened. I'm about to become the alpha, Judy. You must get with the times. Becoming my mistress would only benefit you, plus, don't you want your father out of jail? I will find another way, I said through my teeth. If that's all you came here to say, then I've heard enough. You can leave. He raised his brows as he stared at me. He studied me for a moment longer, like he expected me to change his mind at any moment. You'll change your mind, he told me as he stepped away from me and towards his car. And when you do, I'll be here. But until then, your father will remain in prison. I'll figure it out, I said to his retreating. We don't need you, Ethan. He chuckled as he opened his car door, and then he turned back to gaze into my eyes. To get him out of prison, you'll need at least $5 million. When you realize that there's no other option, you'll come to your senses. I'm sure of it. Without another word, he got into his car. I watched as he drove away, disappearing into the night. It was only when he disappeared that I allowed myself to fall to the ground. Tears streamed down my cheeks before I could stop them. $5 million? How was I going to come up with that kind of money? I had 2 classes this morning and 1 later in the afternoon. My first class was warrior training, and my second class was shifting, both of which I excelled at. I was going to college for Gamma training so that once I graduated, I could prove myself to Gamma Force and become a warrior. Then I would easily be able to pay off my father's debt and save my family. You look like hell, my best friend, Nan pointed out as I sat beside her against the large oak tree. The very tree we always met up at. It was a rough night, I admitted as I took out my textbook to study. Where did you go last night? When I returned, you were gone. Did you leave early because of the engagement party? I bit my lower lip as I thought about what to say to her. If I lied, she'd be able to see right through me. I was a terrible liar initially, but Nan could read me like a book. I ripped my shirt, and someone brought me into his room to change, I said, feeling my cheeks growing warm at the memory. She raised her brows, and I could barely look at her. You went to someone's room? She asked. Whose? I was quiet for a moment, and she grabbed my arm, getting my attention. Judy, who did you leave with? She asked. Now her voice was filled with alarm. I knew there was no getting out of this conversation. I bit my lip and peeked up at her through my lashes. Gavin Landry, I squeaked. Shut up. She gasped. Are you serious? Did you go to Gavin Landry's VIP suite? As in the Gavin Landry? I nearly tackled her. She was being so loud. Keep your voice down, I scolded, attempting to cover her mouth with my hands, but she was too quick and dodged me. How can I possibly keep it down when my best friend went to Gavin Landry's hotel room last night and waited until now to tell me? She exclaimed. Nan was a waitress at the hotel restaurant where the engagement party was last night. The hotel, called Carter Resorts, was in the human territory, and it was owned by Patrick Carter, the Delta of the Silver Crescent Park, which happened to be Gavin Landry's pack. I wasn't surprised to see Gavin there last night, especially considering his daughter was the bride-to-be. I was less surprised to see that he had a VIP suite at the hotel. I sighed. It all happened so fast, and I had a bit too much to drink, I admitted. I all but forgot when I got home because other stuff happened. I wrapped my arms around my body and looked up at her concerned eyes. What else happened? She asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. I took a deep breath, and I told Nan everything that happened right up until Ethan came over and asked me to be his mistress in exchange for him paying off my father's debt. By the time I finished talking, Nan's jaw dropped. The nerve of that asshole, she hissed. How dare he? He rejected you and now he wants you to be his little whore? He has zero shame. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, Nan, I whispered. There's no way I could come up with $5 million to pay off my father's debt. We both fell silent as our thoughts consumed us, and then her face lit up. I knew that look well, and it grew nervous as a smile spread across her face. I knew right away that she had an idea, and I also knew that I wasn't going to like it. You said that he gave you his shirt to wear? She asked. I nodded. She gasped and grabbed my arm. Isn't it obvious, Judy? Gavin is into you. That's the only reason he'd give you his shirt. He wanted his scent on you. He's very picky. In all my time as a waitress, you're first woman he's ever offered. I gawked at her. She had officially lost her mind. Gavin not into me, I said, shaking my head. He gave me his shirt because mine ripped. Theirs was nothing to it. Why would he even care? Nan asked, folding her arms across her chest. He's Gavin Landry and doesn't need to care about any of this. Besides, you mentioned that he kissed you heartedly. You were ready to go all the way with him, which is huge because you were married. There had to be some kind of connection last night. I glanced at my hands. Or maybe I was just hurting and wanted to get back at Ethan, I murmured. Plus, I had a little too much to drink. Drunk actions are sober thoughts or something like that, she said, waving away my words. Then, she smirked. You could use this to your advantage. Do you still have that lingerie you bought for your wedding night? You should pay Gavin a little visit and make him an offer he can't refuse. I knew it was a bad idea the moment she spoke the words, but her words continued to replay in my mind for the remainder of the day and night. When I woke up the next morning, my mind was made up. I went to my closet and grabbed my red lingerie. I had only tried it on once, and I felt little self-conscious wearing it, but I knew the night of my wedding when I finally gave myself over to Ethan fully, it wouldn't matter what I was wearing. My heart ached at the thought and I quickly brushed it out of my head before I started to cry again. I dressed in the lingerie and I grabbed a long trench coat, wrapping it around my body. I left my hair down and I put on a little makeup to make my features pop. For the last day or so, my mother had either been speaking on the phone to lawyers, visiting my father in prison, or in her room. I had barely seen or spoken to her since I told her Ethan wasn't going to help us. I hated knowing I disappointed her, but hopefully this would fix all our problems. It was no secret where Gavin's office was. Everybody knew the famous Gavin Landry Corporation. When I walked through the front door, the receptionist was typing on her computer. She barely spared me a look as I approached the desk. Good morning, I'm here to see Gavin Landry, I said as politely as I could. The receptionist looked upward at me and blinked a couple of times, looking less than amused. Do you have an appointment? No, but... Look, I don't have time for this. Countless women come in here and request to speak with Gavin, and I'm going to tell you what I tell them. Mr. Landry is incredibly busy, and he doesn't have time or patience to be dealing with another fangirl, she said bitterly. And what gives you the right to turn away those who come to see me? A deep voice boomed. Mr. Landry, the receptionist said quickly, standing to her feet. She suddenly seemed disheveled, and I wanted to smirk with satisfaction, but I kept it held in. I asked you a question, Laura, he said, narrowing his eyes at her. What gives you the right to send away guests? You know the protocol. You are to call my office, and I am the one who decides whether or not I will see them or not. Not you. She swallowed hard and glanced at the ground as if staring directly at him physically hurt her. Come with me. It took me a second to realize he was speaking to me, but when I saw the receptionist glaring at me and Gavin retreating, I nearly stumbled over my feet to catch up to him. He walked through a luxurious waiting room until we reached a glass elevator. It was very high-tech, with a touchscreen attached to it. He brought up a keypad and typed in some sequence before pressing the floor number. He stood so close to me that the elevator felt almost cramped despite its being a wide space. I could smell his incredible minty scent mixed in with his aftershave, and my heart skipped a beat. He didn't bother looking at me, though, and I was starting to doubt this plan would work. Maybe he didn't like me as much as I thought he did. I felt awkward knowing that under his coat was nothing but lingerie. The elevator came to a halt and the doors opened. It was an extremely large space with marble flooring and granite walls. "Where exactly is your office?" I asked, staring around the gorgeous area. He glanced at me. His face remained indifferent. "This is my office." My eyes grew larger at his words. He continued walking until he rounded the corner, and sure enough, there was his desk right in front of large windows that overlooked the human city. It was gorgeous, and my stomach twisted with nerves. He didn't bother sitting on his desk chair. Instead, he turned to face me, leaning against his desk and folding his arms across his chest. I swallowed the lump in my throat as I took him in. He wore a white dress shirt with sleeves rolled up halfway, showing off his incredible muscles, and his dark dress pants hugged his waist perfectly, showcasing his incredible form. My wolf purred with satisfaction, and I found myself staring at him for way longer than I intended to. He cleared his throat, making me nearly jump out of my skin as my gaze shot upward and met his. He was smirking at me as if to say, "Caught you." My cheeks burned from the embarrassment I felt. "So what did you come here for?" he asked, breaking the tension between us. "Oh, right. The reason I'm here. I have a problem and I need your help," I said in a rush. He raised his right brow. "What kind of problem?" I cleared my throat before continuing. "My father was arrested the other night," I blurted. "His business went bankrupt and he owes a lot of money, roughly $5 million. He was silent as he stared at me. I realized he was waiting for me to continue. Probably wanted to know how I needed his help. "I was hoping you'd be able to help him and maybe pay the debt for my father so he could get out of prison?" I asked, biting my lip. He was quiet for another moment, processing my request before he ran his hands over his face. "And what would I get in return for helping your family?" he asked. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Confidence. I needed confidence." I held my head up high and looked him right in the eyes. It was known as a challenge to look an alpha directly in the eyes. Even worse, so looking a Lycan directly in the eyes. But Gavin wasn't as angry as I thought he would be. Instead, he looked intrigued. "Well," I began, dropping my voice low as I stepped closer to him. "At the party the other day, we obviously had a connection." I felt my cheeks growing hot as I spoke those words, and I thought, maybe. I took a deep breath and undid my coat, revealing a portion of my lingerie, but not all of it. Not yet, at least. His eyes darkened as he gazed over my body, and I nearly melted under his scrutiny. I suddenly had a surge of confidence, and I reached my hand out to touch his arm. "I thought maybe I could do some favors for you in return," I said in a sultry voice. "I'm a college student and very clean. I haven't had sex before, but I'm on birth control, so you don't need to worry about anything." His breathing grew heavy as he straightened his posture, closing the small gap between us. His nearness was intoxicating, and my heart started to race against my chest. His scent enveloped me, and I couldn't remember the last time I felt this delirious. He reached his hand up, and I felt his fingers glide down my cheeks, sending a wave of warmth throughout my whole body. We were so close together that I thought I was going to pass out from the heat that consumed me. His eyes were dark like they were the night in the VIP suite. He swallowed hard, and I watched his Adam's apple move slightly. I closed my eyes, preparing for him to kiss me. I could feel his breath on my lips, and just as I leaned in close to him, getting ready for his embrace, it never came. Instead, I felt him adjusting my coat, covering my body. My eyes flew open, and I looked at his stern expression. "Do you really think I need to pay a woman for sex?" he asked, breaking the silence. "You said it yourself that I have many options." My cheeks flushed immediately. "I just thought. You thought you could use your body to pay for my help," he said, interrupting me. "You are still young, Miss Montague. You will regret taking such shortcuts in the future." How did he know my name? I hadn't told him. Had he looked into me? My heart skipped a beat at the thought, but his words were slowly crushing me. He didn't want me. I lowered my gaze, hating how hot my face was getting. I knew he could see just how embarrassed I was. When he spoke next, he softened his voice and spoke with compassion. "Look, I have a daughter," he told me. "I would never teach her to use her body as a transaction. I want more for her and her future, and I expect better from her." He reached his hand and caressed the nape of my neck with his fingertips. My breath hitched as I gazed into his eyes. "I expect better from you," he added. My heart fell into my stomach and disappointment consumed me. He was right. I was better than this. I nodded my head and opened my mouth to speak, but I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see a couple of security guards standing nearby, and I whipped around to look at Gavin with wide eyes. "I'm afraid my time is up and my patience has run out," Gavin said, looking at me briefly before glancing at the security guards. Escort Miss Montague out of the building, please. Yes, sir, they both said. They stood on each side of me and I stared at Gavin with shock. I didn't fight or argue with the security guards as they told me to come with them. Thank you for your time, I managed to say before I turned and left the office. I wanted to cry because of the shame, but I knew more importantly I needed a new job. I'm so excited we get to work together, Nan said with a wide smile. And you look great in that uniform. I looked down at my uniform. I felt ridiculous in this thing. It was a short skirt and a crop top that showed way too much cleavage. I felt like I was on display. Especially at night when this place pretty much turned into a club. These men are wealthy and would tip generously. It was an opportunity and couldn't pass up when I was struggling for money. That's what friends are for, she said, nudging my arm with hers. She looked behind me and sighed. Looks like we are getting a group of guys. Good luck, she said. I sighed and turned to greet the customers, but then I froze when I saw who was amongst them. Ethan, you were right, I heard one of his friends saying. She does work here. This is going to be so good. Hey, call girl, can we get a table or are you just going to stare at us? Call girl? I placed the menus on the table for them and waited for each of them to take a seat. I'm not a call girl. Please take your seat. As I leaned over the table to put the beer in front of each of them, one of them grabbed my rear end. I felt my entire body freeze. I like this little uniform on you. How about you take it off and see what's underneath? My entire body went hot as I stepped back from the table, forcing his hand to drop. Don't touch me, I said loudly to each of them. Oh, come on, Judy. Aren't you here to satisfy men? Another of his friends asked. So come here and satisfy us. Sit on my lap. I pressed my lips together. I'm not a call girl, I told them, for the final time. I'm a waitress. You got this job because you're hit. One of them chuckled. The manager didn't care about your skills. He cared about whether or not you could flirt with the customers and make him a lot of money. I'm willing to give you a good tip if you let me see what's underneath your uniform and sit on my lap. I felt my blood going cold from his words. Come here, baby girl, he said, patting his lap and winking at me. I just stared at him, disbelieving. I looked at Ethan, who was watching me, waiting to see what I would do. How could he just let his friends speak to me like this? At one point, he would have never allowed this. He would have punched anyone who looked at me with lust in their eyes. Now he was acting as if he didn't care. I'll give you $10,000 if you drink this entire beer, one of his friends asked. My mouth nearly fell open. What? I asked. You heard me, he answered. Drink this whole beer and you'll get $10,000. We'll all give you $10,000 each if you drink all of our beers, another one said. I stared at the beer and then at the men. My eyes landed on Ethan once more. He raised his brows, waiting for my answer. Swallowing my pride, I stepped towards the table and grabbed one of the glasses. I really didn't like beer, but money was money, and I knew Ethan's friends were rich and could pay that kind of money easily. I needed the cash to get my father out of prison and pay off his debt. I brought the cup to my lips and let the liquid run down my throat. I winced at the bitter taste, but I kept pushing myself until the cup was empty. His friends were cheering and chanting as I drank the contents of the cup. I slammed the cup on the counter and looked at the next guy who slid his beer at me, winking as he did so. I chugged his beer as well. I only got halfway through the third glass when I felt a firm grip around my wrist and I was yanked away. I heard Ethan's friends booing and telling him he was a party pooper. I had no idea where Ethan was taking me. He was quiet until we reached outside and then he whipped around to glare at me. Accept my offer and stop this foolishness, he ordered. I won't be your mistress, Ethan, I told him, narrowing my eyes, my head fuzzy from the beer. You can forget about that. You'd rather act like a little slut instead? He asked through his teeth. You looked ridiculous in there. Why do you care? You have your fiancé. This is my private business, and my private business no longer includes you. You are still mine, Judy. You will always be mine, he growled. I wanted to laugh at his ridiculousness, but I also wanted to cry. He was so sweet at one point. I spent more than 2 years loving this man. Now, as he stood before me, I realized he was a stranger. I am not yours. I told him, glad that my voice came out stronger than I felt. He let out a bitter laugh. Fine, be a whore for all I care, he growled. Spread your legs for money because that's all you're good for. Before I could stop myself, my hand swung and made contact with his cheek, causing a loud slap. He didn't flinch, but he grew angrier as he went to grab my throat. He froze, though, when he looked at my neck and I watched the color drain from his face. What the fuck? He hissed. He grabbed my chin and yanked my head to the side. Is that a hickey? I realized when getting dressed this morning that the hickey Gavin left on me the other night was still there. It was fading, but visible. So, what if it is? I asked. He released my chin, and I glared at me, his gaze icy. Who the hell have you been with? That's not your concern, I retorted. I turned to walk away, but he gripped my arm, making me whimper in pain as he whipped me around to face him again. Answer my goddamn question, Judy. Who have you been with? Through gritted teeth, I answered. Gavin. Your future father-in-law. Happy now? He released me and let out a bank of laughter. Are you kidding me? You don't have to make up such a ridiculous story, Ethan said through a fit of laughter. I heard more laughter from nearby, and I realized Ethan's friends were crowding around. Is she talking about Gavin Landry? He has standards. He would never go for a girl like Judy. Yeah, Judy is a slut, and Gavin is a Lycan Chairman. There's no way. Another friend laughed. I'm being serious, I told them, folding my arms across my chest. This time Ethan did grab my throat, and his gaze turned almost deadly. Stop playing me for a fool and tell me the truth, he growled. Gavin would never want someone like you. You are nobody. You don't fit into his world. I couldn't breathe as his hands tightened around my throat, so I couldn't respond. Now how about you do as I say and move into the house I bought? Once I get married, I'll see you frequently at night, and you can spread your pretty little legs for me only. There was a loud honk from nearby, making Ethan drop his hold around my neck. I coughed and rubbed my sore neck as he glared at the person interrupting us. I glanced at the black Bentley and frowned when the door opened. I gasped when I saw Gavin seated in the back, his eyes on me. Get in, he ordered. I stared at him, disbelieving. I won't ask you again, Judy, he said through his teeth. I felt Ethan's shocked eyes on me as I quickly hurried towards the car and got in, closing the door behind me. Drive, he ordered the driver. Yes, sir. The car started to move. Ethan stood on the curb. His mouth nearly dropped. His friends were equally shocked. Gavin glanced at me, and I felt my cheeks reddening. Using me to make your ex-fiancé jealous, are you? Judy's point of view. I snapped a look at Gavin, shocked that he knew Ethan was my ex-fiancé. He really has done his research on me. Initially, I thought he just looked up my name, but he knew more information than I was prepared for. How did you know that he was my ex-fiancé? There's very little I don't know, he answered casually. Like the fact that Ethan, who is my daughter's current fiancé, was your fated mate. I took a sharp breath from his bold statement and felt my cheeks warming. Am I wrong? He then asked, telling from his tone. I knew that he knew he wasn't wrong, shook my head and looked away from him, unable to hide the embarrassment on my face. This was the one thing I didn't want him to know about. Regardless of what happened in the past, Irene and Ethan are to be married soon, and I hope everything goes smoothly for her sake. I bit my lip, not wanting to discuss this any further. I hope he will get the hint based on my silence. I kept my gaze out of the window, and my frown deepened when we reached the border of my pack. I hadn't told him where I lived, but the driver was heading in the direction of my parents' house. My heart hammered against my chest. Was there anything this man didn't find out? I found myself looking at him. He was staring out the window, his eyes fixated on the sight before him. His strong jawline looked tense, and his full lips were pressed in a thin line. Memories of the other night invaded my mind, and I thought about how his lips felt against mine. The sweetness and the softness of them, yet he kissed me with so much passion and desire. I licked my lips at the memory. Instinctively, my fingers reached up to the nape of my neck and touched the spot where he sucked and kissed. The hickey that Ethan had seen and lost his temper over. My face warmed from the marking Gavin left on my flesh. If you are done staring at me, you can get out now. Gavin's voice broke me from my thoughts. I blinked a few times and looked out the window. I realized we were outside my parents' house. Oh, I breathed, unsure what to say, having been caught staring at him. I was embarrassed, and I just wanted to get away from him as fast as I could. I quickly unfastened my seatbelt and shouldered my purse before opening the car door. Thank you for the ride, I told him lately. He gave me a curt nod. As I slid out of the car, I felt his hand wrap around my wrist, halting me. Judy, he said, his voice filled with authority. The sound of my name on his lips made warm chills course through my body. I paused and met his gaze, holding my breath as I did so. Yes? I replied, my voice coming out almost breathy. His grip loosened around my wrist as he said, We won't be meeting again. Understood? And just like that, it felt like someone stabbed me in the chest. I was stunned by his remark and hurt. I swallowed the lump in my throat and gave him a curt nod. Understood, I managed to whisper. He released my wrist and I immediately felt cold from the lack of contact. It was a strange feeling to have, considering we only made out once and barely had a proper conversation, but I felt the absence of his touch, as if I had just taken off a coat in the middle of a winter storm. I didn't say anything more as I got out of the car. The door shut after me and I could no longer see Gavin behind the tinted windows, but I knew his eyes were on me. I turned and hurried towards the house, getting my keys out of my purse in the process. The lights were off, so I knew my mother was either sleeping or she had gone out. I unlocked the door and pushed it open, pausing when I felt Gavin's gaze still on me. I realized the car was still in front of the house. I turned back slightly and gave the car an awkward wave before stepping into the house, shutting the door. A few seconds later, I heard the car driving off. I let out the breath I didn't know I was holding. I went upstairs and into my room so I could change clothes. I was done with this uniform. I didn't want to do a degrading job and lose my self-respect only to gain money. I was better than that. I needed to focus on my studies so that I could graduate and become a gamma. I already sent a ton of applications elsewhere that could help me with my career goals. Hopefully, I'll hear back from them soon. I took my phone out of my bag so I could text Nan that I made it home okay and to not expect me back at work anytime soon. There was no way I was going to return to that place after what happened tonight. I made a mental note to apologize to the manager as well. But just as I was about to pull up Nan's contact message, a message appeared. I frowned when I saw Ethan's name flashing on the screen. Sighing, I opened the message and gasped when I read the words he sent me. Ethan, how dare you leave with another man? You truly are a slut, Ethan. You'll spread your legs for anyone for money. Have you always been this shameless? Ethan, maybe if I gave you money, you'd spread your legs for me in the 2 years I've wasted on you. I flinched at his words. 2 years he's wasted on me? My wolf whimpered in pain from the cruelty of our mate, and tears immediately filled my eyes as I sat on my bed. Then another message popped up. Ethan, he's never going to care for you like I do. He hasn't had a serious relationship in 20 years. You could never be anything to him besides a desperate slut. When you come to your senses, I'll be here waiting. Your father could be out of jail tomorrow if you take me up on my offer. I pressed my lips together as tears ran down my cheeks. I was seconds away from throwing my phone across the room, but then a new message appeared. I was relieved to see that this message was not from Ethan. Nan, are you okay? You left so suddenly. Me. Sorry. I don't think I can do this job anymore. It's too much and I feel gross. I hope you aren't mad. Nan, I'm not mad. I kind of figured you wouldn't want to continue working here after today. You are better than this place. Did you leave with Ethan? Me. No. I got a ride with someone else. I wasn't sure if I should tell her that Gavin was the one who dropped me off at home. Nan. Who? I didn't want to lie to her, so I started to type in a response, but then she texted again. Nan, tell me later. We just got a huge rush of people. I sighed and typed a quick response. Me? Okay, talk soon. I threw my phone at the end of my bed and rested my head on my pillow. I knew with certainty that it would be yet another restless night. Third-person point of view. Ethan stared in the direction that the car went. It was Gavin Landry, Irene's father, and the man that Ethan so desperately wanted to impress. Yet, his mate just got into the car with him and drove off. Did that just happen? Ethan's friend asked, equally shocked. None of them expected Judy to be telling the truth about getting together with Ethan's future father-in-law, but her getting in that car casually was proof enough. This was not supposed to happen. Judy was supposed to take Ethan up on his offer. That was the whole point of Ethan's plan. He knew when he married Irene, he would lose Judy, and the only way he could get Judy to stick around was to blackmail her using the only thing he could against her. Her family. Bankrupting her father's company was easy, considering he had connections everywhere. Ethan's family was very well known, and now that he was the candidate for becoming the alpha of the Red Moon Pack, he had even more connections. He thought Judy would have jumped at the opportunity to save her family, but she was stubborn. When Ethan found out Judy worked at this restaurant, he brought his friends along to scare her away from this job, but that also didn't work out as planned. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Cut off all of Judy's job opportunities. I don't want her working anywhere around here, he ordered into the phone. Are you sure? Miss Montague has quite a few applications around town. The man on the other end stated. They are pretty good positions too, and her applications are flawless. Get rid of them all, Ethan ordered. She isn't to get any of those jobs. Understood? But I'll pull my family's sponsorship from your business and ruin you if you don't do as I say. There was a moment of pause on the other end before he said, Yes, sir. The call was off, and a slow smile spread across Ethan's lips. It won't be long now before Judy grows so desperate that she crawls into his bed, begging to be his mistress. Meanwhile, as Beta Taylor drove away from Judy's house, he peered through the mirror at Gavin, who was staring out the window with a tense expression. He had been quiet since dropping Judy off at her house. When they saw her arguing with Ethan outside the restaurant, Gavin ordered Beta to stop driving immediately, and he did so. It was a strange reaction for someone who claims not to care for the girl. "Why don't you pursue her?" Taylor asked as he fixed his attention back on the road. Gavin looked at him and furrowed his brows. "What?" Taylor smirked. "I see the way you look at her, Alpha. You are clearly more interested in her than you have been with the others. So, why not pursue her? Third-person point of view, I don't mix personal relationships with other matters." Gavin replied as he sat back in his seat and continued to stare out the window. He didn't want to continue this conversation. He had already made up his mind that he wasn't to see Judy Montague again. "Or are you just afraid?" Taylor asked, his tone teasing and a smirk playing on his lips. Gavin scowled at his Beta. "Taylor, you're fired," he muttered. This made Taylor laugh. "And how many times have you fired me?" Taylor asked, still laughing and shaking his head. "This week? More times than I can count. One of these days I'm going to mean it." Gavin replied, rolling his eyes. "And you think that's going to stop me from telling you my thoughts? We've known one another for a long time, Alpha. What makes you think I'm going to keep quiet?" "Just focus on driving, Beta," Gavin said through his teeth. Taylor was about to say something more, but then his phone rang, making him stop in the middle of his sentence. He pulled his phone out and pressed the talk button. A familiar voice sounded on Bluetooth. "Butler, Adam. You are on speakerphone. I have Alpha Gavin with me," Taylor said. Adam had been part of Gavin's family for a long time and trustworthy butler. Gavin scowled, personally put him in charge of caring for 7-year-old Matt while he was away. He didn't usually call like this unless it was Matt-related. As soon as Gavin heard that it was Adam on the phone, he was immediately on high alert. "Oh, good, Alpha. I must speak with you about your son. Another tutor quit this evening," Adam said, sounding a bit irritated. "Another one?" Gavin asked, pressing his lips together. "That would be number 49. His tutors never lasted more than a few days. Matt wasn't a bad kid, but Gavin knew he was a bit troubled at times." "Yes, sir. Master Matthew scared her off like he had the others. I'm not sure what more to do for him. I've tried speaking to him, but he only lashes out at me, Alpha." "Widen the recruitment scope and increase the salary offers," Gavin demanded. "Maybe a bit more money will keep them around longer." Adam sighed. "Yes, Alpha. I'll see what I can do," he murmured before the line disconnected. Beta Taylor was quiet for a short while, stealing glances into the mirror periodically. "Do you suppose he's developing issues concerning his mother?" Taylor finally asked. Gavin glared at him through the mirror. "He doesn't speak to his mother," Gavin said bitterly. "Nor will he for quite a while if I have anything to say about it." Judy's point of view. "It's been a disheartening couple of days. All my job applications kept getting rejected. I didn't understand why I wasn't getting any of these jobs. My application was flawless. I had a ton of experience from former jobs, not to mention a ton of education due to college. I was also young and in good shape. Yet I kept facing rejection after rejection. Pulling out my phone, I decided to search the job boards. I applied to a few of these businesses already, and most of them hadn't heard back from me. Then something new appeared, and my brows raised. It was posted a little over an hour ago. A tutoring job for a 7-year-old boy, multiple subjects including basic combat skills and defense. Must be knowledgeable and experienced. I bit my lower lip as I sent in my resume. A tutoring job would be nice, and I would be able to do it after my own school schedule as well. The job was posted on a werewolf job board, and the location was in the Silver Crescent pack, which wasn't far from the Red Moon pack. Instead of waiting around for them to call me, I decided to use the number listed on the board and give Mr. Adam Connors a call. "Adam Connors speaking," a deep voice said on the other end. Mr. Connors. My name is Judy Montague. I stumbled across your ad seeking a tutor for 7-year-old boy. I just sent in my resume and I would like the opportunity to meet with you." There was silence on the other end, and it made me feel nervous. A swarm of butterflies flapped away in my belly as I waited for his response. "This job isn't for the weak, madam. May I ask if you've ever tutored before?" he asked. "I have helped my peers with their schoolwork in high school. I'm currently a student at the Royal Academy, studying combat and shifting. I'm skilled in most subjects. I graduated top of my class in high school, and I aim to do the same in college as well, I told him. I see, he said thoughtfully. That's quite impressive. Master Matthew is a bit troubled though, and might need someone stronger enough to handle him, he said a bit hesitantly. My goal after college is to become a Gamma warrior. If I'm not strong enough to handle a troubled 7-year-old, then there's a bigger issue at hand, Mr. Connors, I said without missing a beat. There was a brief pause on the other end, and then I heard him chuckling. I must say I like your confidence, Miss Montague, he replied. Please call me Judy, I insisted. All right, Judy. Well, I just pulled up the resume you sent me, and it's quite impressive indeed. Why does someone with your skill set and ambitions want to tutor a child?